Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in today's session webinar on how data, content, design thinking is impacting B2B marketing. So we have few of the audience still coming in, so maybe we can hold on for a while. So I guess we have got a decent audience now. So let's start. So thank you everyone for joining again. So we have two guests today, Mr. Arindam Dey, founder of Biz Anecdotes, a specialized B2B consulting company. Arindam has over a decade and a half of experience in companies like Microsoft, Coca-Cola, and HP in B2B marketing. We also have Mr. Saurabh Pandey, CEO of .Converse, a specialized and a leading B2B digital and account-based marketing agency. Mr. Saurabh Pandey also has spent over a decade and a half in companies like Google, Theater, IBM, and Olis. So, like, without wasting any time, let's begin the session and let's start putting questions to both the guests. So, I will request both the guests to maybe if they can turn on their cameras.
Hi. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you both of you for joining. So, Arindam, are you there?
We will start, Himanshu. I think.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Right. So let's take the first question. Let me get you the first question. So, Mr. Pandey, as we have seen that most of the B2B marketing revolves around exhibitions, events, PR. However, the advent of digital B2B has transformed, and there is a lot of talk around data propelling the B2B marketing. So, what are your thoughts on the same?
Sure. So in our previous couple of webinars also where we talked about transformation of B2B marketing and transformation of marketing as such, we focused on the fact that data is imperative, for a prudent marketing campaign or a marketing environment in a B2B company. Right? There is a report by Forrester also that says that about 37% of marketers waste their money because they don't have proper data. Right? Now, if you don't have proper data, then your targeting, of course, will be hurt. Your personalization would be hurt, and you would end up losing customers or potential customers, prospects, etc. Right? The question that is there in people's mind is, what kind of data? Before we even delve into, yes, I need to, acquire data or I need to get data in place. The question that we need to ask ourselves as B2B marketers is, what type of data do we need? And I think from my own personal experience, there are 5 broad categories of data sets that all of us should focus upon. Right? The first set of data that we need to invest in collecting and nurturing is the persona data. Persona data is essentially data of your audience set. Okay, and you make it rich by adding the profile data, the demographics data, the pain point of your audience, the aspirations of your audience, the current infrastructure that the audience has currently, right? So this is the persona data that you need to invest into. The second set of data that you would want to invest in is interaction data, right? How is the audience interacting with your communication or your content, right? Do you have that data with you? Third is the intent data. What is that data telling us about their interest and intent? Are we capturing their data or not? Fourth is the purchase data. Where are people purchasing your solutions from? From whom? What is their purchase experience, right? What kind of products are they purchasing? So that data we need to have. And lastly, we need to have post-purchase data. How well are your audience at using your services? No matter who you are, you may be a B2B agency like us, or you may be a company like SAP. Unless you get insights into how well your audience is using your services, right, that the whole exercise of marketing will be in vain. So how well are they using it? What are their complaints? What are their queries? And how can they use your product and solution better? So these five types of basic data sets that we need to invest in. And how do you do that? Of course, you would do that by researching, by doing surveys. There was a case study of IBM that we talked about in our last webinar about how IBM creates leadership verticals from their customer sets, and it creates an advisory council, and they meet every month, and that's how they understand their customers' pain point, where they can go next, right? And it also creates a stickiness for IBM with their audience sets. Right? So, Arindam, you have any points to make?
Yes, rightly. Yeah. So, am I audible?
Yes, Arindam, we can hear you.
Am I audible, Saurabh? Yeah. Great. So, Saurabh, yeah, you rightly mentioned that so everyone nowadays is talking about big data and importance of data in business as well as in the marketing. But it's very important to understand that what kind of data that is required. Now, in marketing side, that we see the customer, that the way they buy or they sell and that they're behaving is day by day is changing because of this that in the boom in the online space. Now, we can see the customers demand a personalized, they want reliable, durable product. Even they define the, what time they want to have the product. Now, all those things are becoming possible because the data, those are available. Now, that if you see that, 90% of data, that being generated from last 2-3 years, the sudden boom that happened. And I was quite surprised to see the number, like, approximately 2.5, quintillion bytes of data created every day. Sure. But, but at the same time, it is very important that, it's a very, very overwhelming, for everyone, that if you don't put data in the right perspective, that in the data doesn't make any sense for anybody. So it's very important that, that you understand what kind of data that we require to run your business or to market your business or to even to develop your product. Now in B2B marketing, that both of us are experiencing that now people have started to realizing that there is to be a time that, when, marketing means that also you just define your audience, you define the, the profile, the geo, and you just mass level, you are just broad level, you are just targeting your customer. Now people are, that they're talking about the intent data, so that you can target the customer who has a high buying intent rather than waste your money to target the entire base. ABM is another big example when how the predictive analytics can help the sales guy to shorten the customer with whom they want to interact, which they are not able to do it maybe prior to they started this engagement. So those are the few changes that we are seeing with the usage of right data. But one more interesting part is that right now data is not only limited to market, and people are using it in many different way. So there's a company called it's called Kroger, it's an American-based retail chain, and so the word there they're committing that they've collected data of close to 770 million consumer. And based on that, they've created some loyalty program. Now, those loyalty program, now Kroger claims that 95% of the sales are coming to this this loyalty program, and which managed to add close to 12 billion in incremental revenue. So that's what that's coming back to your point that it's very important that which data that you require. Until unless that is so overwhelming. So you end up creating a good, big memo, but after that you don't know how to use it. So yeah, so that's my point.
Absolutely, and I think from there, I think the next question, of course, is then where do we get this data from?
Yeah.
And both of us, I and Arindam, both work on some very large clients also from a B2B marketing perspective, and we have seen, both of us, that often the data is scattered. Right? Either a lot of large companies do not have the data, or if they have some data, that data is scattered across dealers, distributors, sales team, marketing. It's completely not in one place. So unless the data is in one place, you really cannot leverage it, right? And the question, of course, is coming back to that question: is where do you get this data from? So a lot of people ask us this question: how do we get this data? So we don't have to look far. There are a lot of owned assets of our own, like for example, our newsletters. People who have subscribed to our newsletters, our own leads that are with us over the past few months or past few years, the leads that one has accumulated. Both these data sets are the first data sets that one should look at, because they give you a clear indication of intent data, because people were interested in something, either a product or a specific type of content. So that's number one. You need the data back into a CRM. But a lot of this data can be old or not updated frequently. So you need to invest into refreshing this and enriching this also. Right. Also, again, we have seen in one of our clients' case that a lot of data resides in-store data. People who buy from stores, right? That data is often in the stores itself. It never comes to the principal. So that is important. A lot of our B2B clients participate in exhibitions and events. That data never comes back. You might have some data from the visiting cards that people have left, but there is so much more data that one has not captured. So by digitally enabling your exhibitions and events, you can create opportunities to capture data. You would know that, okay, this person was interested in this product because he scanned a code at this product shelf. Okay, this or some other person went into the sample collection table and shared some details there, and so on. Right. So in these cases, when you digitally enable your exhibitions and events, you would, in many cases, get a lot of data which otherwise you would not have got. Or even if you don't get data, you can easily remarket those people, right? Because you are creating opportunities where people are interacting with your products. So you have an opportunity to collect cookies. Till the time we are living in a cookie-free world, we are allowed to retarget. We can do that at least. So there are ample ways in which we can collect data from our own assets, mostly, of course, and from third-party assets like in-stores or third-party exhibitions, events, etc. Right? So we get a lot of intent signals from this data, and we have our own proprietary tool set, which is Kaboom, which is an account-based marketing platform, and I think Arindam would agree. We work with again a lot of our clients on ABM, account-based marketing, where we know the top accounts of our clients, right, at which stage they are and what is their intent of buying, right? And that's not a small task. You are targeting your top 2,000 accounts, and all the decision makers or most of the decision makers are at which stage of interaction with you, what is their intent, etc. Right. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also that I will request all the marketer, because sometimes the marketer also, they get overwhelmed by the term that the data. So one is very easiest way to know what kind of data that one marketer that requires. That once you define the objective of any campaign or engagement or any business outcome that will drive, automatically that objective will give you an answer that what kind of information or data that you require to drive it. So that is also that I feel there's a one very fundamental thing generally that we miss. And to your the comment point that maybe in a day-to-day that business scenario where we end up getting basically gathering so much of data, but unfortunately we don't structure it properly. Especially if we see that that bigger MNCs, maybe their global team, they have implemented some tool or automation, so through this they're capturing. But when it comes to the small and medium business, I think it's a time for them to structure their data sets. Like like for example, you just mentioned exhibition. Now that most of the Indian SMB, for them, the main marketing, the first priority of the marketing is their exhibition. They are collecting so much of data every year, but hardly few of them they are structured in the right manner so that they can utilize properly. Because see, it's not about, generally people think that okay, it's a data collection and maintenance is a cost, but I'll rather say that if you have the right data, you can optimize your cost while you're doing the marketing.
Absolutely. Your marketing cost comes down if you have invested well in data.
Yeah. So it's the other way around.
Absolutely. And we are also receiving a lot of proposals from virtual exhibition companies who are doing virtual exhibitions for B2B companies today. And they are also on the path of failure because you can't replicate the offline environment to online. Then it doesn't make sense. Unless your virtual exhibitions work with a data mindset to allow, to create opportunities for participants to capture data, which otherwise they would not have captured in offline scenarios. The virtual exhibitions will not be a success. So yes, absolutely.
Great. Thank you. So second question.
So we can now come to maybe next point, which is design thinking. So
yeah, I think there's a question on that. So, Himanshu, you have a question? It seems.
Definitely. Yeah, I do have. I thought Arindam was saying. Okay. So, like as lately we are observing a lot of focus around content marketing from B2B perspective. So, what role does content and content marketing play in B2B marketing?
Okay.
Like,
okay, content and Arindam, you want to talk about this?
Yeah. So yes. Okay. So so I can talk about this design thinking. So there's a new that the term.
Who has asked about the content marketing? Is it Himanshu? Have you asked about the content marketing?
I asked, like, there's a lot of focus is around content marketing and B2B perspective, like from a B2B perspective nowadays. Like as you have already mentioned a lot of things about content and content marketing and the data.
So I think we're unable to hear Himanshu. So Saurabh, we can now discuss about that next pointer, which is like design thinking.
Yes. There are two questions here. There is one on design thinking, one on content marketing. Yeah, we can address that first. Design thinking part.
Yeah, design thinking. So so must be everyone is wondering that how design thinking is relevant to B2B marketing, and that everyone is talking about that, but that very few, I think that when you first heard about this term, so I was a little confused that what is this all about. So now that in a nutshell, the design thinking is nothing, only the way that we approach and structure our thoughts, whether we can apply it into the business, our day-to-day life, or if you're a marketer, they can implement into their their marketing overall process. So it's a holistic that problem-solving framework, I'd rather say, and which is not limited to front-end customer-facing graphic design or UI UX related issues alone. So that it's divided into 4 pillars. So first one is that it's a empathy. So I'll explain what is this, how this empathy is relevant to design thinking. Empathy, then define, ideate, prototype, and then the test. So why generally people use this process? So that their end campaign can yield a better result, and and also can optimize the cost part. So now I'll try to explain that each of the pillars I just mentioned. So empathy means is generally that most of the time what it happens that when we create any, the strategy or by they develop a product, we, generally think that, okay, so this is the best. We don't think from the customer point of view. So it's very important that, to observe this entire thing from a customer point of view. Now, design thinking help us to process this questioning process. So we should question that, the problem. We should question the assumption that you have created. We should create the implication. So that means that once you start thinking from the customer point of view, you should put a proper SWOT analysis. That, okay, that if you are thinking that okay, this product is good or this strategy should work for a particular customer. Now, what customer will react when you serve that particular, that content or messaging or the product? Now, third part is that, that once you define it, is very important that, generally we both of us, discuss most of the time that, sometimes to become self-critical, that whether we have created something, so whether it's only our thought, because sometimes we become very subjective. So to have a proper brainstorming, and then the most important is the create a prototype and do the A/B testing, or, we call the test. So we, one of our client, but that we did A/B testing, and then we figured out that which, the messaging is working well, rather than in a boardroom. So for a particular, when you show any creative, so different person has different reactions. So very, very subjective. So it's better that give it to, your customer, see their reaction, and based on that choose your, which, message or which content or which campaign gonna work out. So that is all about, the design thinking, that put everything into perspective in a proper synchronized manner, and most importantly, put yourself in the, user shoes. Think from their perspective, not from as a marketer perspective.
No, absolutely. Point well made, Arindam. And I could not help but think about, various times when some of our clients come back to us and say, okay, I need to get a website designed, with a good design, right? And when we ask them, what do you mean by a good design? And he says it should look good, right?
It should look good, yeah.
That is where the distinction is. I mean, a lot of people get confused between design and design thinking. A design may look good, but a design thinking talks about how that thing can work good. How can that thing work well, work better, right?
Yeah.
So looking good and working good are two different things. Looking good is the aesthetic part, but how can you make that thing work better for your consumers is what design thinking is all about. Also in our previous webinars, again coming back, the transformation part, we talked about that how businesses are transforming, specifically B2B, how they are transforming, right? The focus is shifting from marketing to customer experience. So marketing to experience is one transition that we are looking at, right? From a more engineering focus, we are looking at more of a design focus, right? So there are a lot of products that people make which are more industrial products, and then there are a lot of products which are consumer focused, consumer products, right? So for example, if you were to look at an air conditioner, you will find two variants in the market. One is an industrial air conditioner and another is a consumer air conditioner. Now, apart from the fact that the power of both these are different and both of them are made to work in different environments, I don't think there should be any reason why they should be designed differently in terms of usage, right? If you look at an industrial air conditioner or an industrial cooler or an industrial oxygen concentrator, for instance, it will be very tough to operate them. You will be intimidated by them in terms of their design itself. The challenge today is how can we use the best practices of user design or user experience of consumer products and bring them back into business products. So that's one challenge and objective and transformation area that we are, looking at, right? So we need to think, as Arindam rightly you pointed out, there is only one core nucleus of design thinking, and that is empathy. You need to think from a consumer's perspective, right? From a consumer's pain perspective, what is that pain of the consumer that I am going to solve through my product, from my solution, through my service? That should be the agenda, right? And which is why, if you see the examples today in the world of Apple or Nike, or even products like SAP, they're all consumer-centric design. They work with a design thinking principle, and which is why Apple comes out with just 1 or 2 products in a year.
Yeah.
Apple or Nike or SAP are not in the race of creating thousands of models and products to get market share, right? That's not the objective. The objective is, how can I create one good product which meets the aspirations and pains of my consumer, right? That is how MacBook was created. That is how iPod was created, right? And that is how other platforms, Nike's new products that you see, that is how they are getting created, and that is how they disrupt the market.
Yeah.
Right. So innovation is led by or triggered by design thinking, and that is how you control the market. So this is what, to my mind, B2B guys, B2B marketing people, or B2B businesses need to also infuse now today. They have to. So it's a clear example that we took last time also in our webinar about a B2B e-commerce platform versus a B2C e-commerce platform. If you go to Amazon's B2B platform, it is as simple to use as your B2C e-commerce platform, right? So that is how it should be. It should be B2B to adapt to the environment in which it has to work and to cater to the needs of your customer, but it should be as easy to use, and it should create value for the user as you do it with B2C products. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we have got few questions from our participants as well. So shall I take one of them?
Yeah, sure.
Right. So we have a question from can you share any example or best practice around data and design thinking usage in B2B?
Okay. I think Arindam has already given an example of data for a company which
maybe I can give one example that program. So design thinking, because ABM, account-based marketing, if you see the process, if you see that the journey that was that has been created, it's that one of the biggest example of design thinking, especially the B2B side, because when you design a proper ABM campaign, the first part is that to understand your customer. Therefore, we call generally we ask all our clients that whenever you want to put the ABM, first let us know that what your customer said. Secondly, second part is that we divide the customer into different vertical. Why we do this? So that we understand that that which customer has what kind of requirement, because buyer A can have a different requirement from the buyer Z. So it's very, very important to understand from the customer point of view what is his requirement, rather than that one product fits all. It doesn't work. And second part, then we take it that we serve the right content, who's the journey. So what I try to say that ABM is one of the best example that one person, one marketer can put a complete design thinking process to get a the better result out of it. Now, if you see that the current from last 1.5 year, the way that IBM, one more companies that called the Genpact, and then both the companies they are doing tremendously well in the B2B marketing process. So there is a separate team who is continuously working on to understand that how the customer is behaving in the online, what is the buying pattern, what the content they're consuming, which time they consume the kind of content, and based on all those the data sets, they're creating their their campaigns or their content strategy. So so that's what that quickly just coming to my mind. So the two companies recently we have seen the huge the way they're working on this data set, they're putting the design thinking, so that that instead of targeting all. They're talking to the customer who has the high buying intent and who is interested to talk to the this particular set of category.
Absolutely, and let me make it even more simpler for our audience by looking at.
Saurabh, you want to share anything?
Yeah, guys, am I audible, Himanshu?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Arindam, am I audible?
Arindam, can you hear Mr. Saurabh?
I can hear Saurabh.
Great. Okay, fine. So I just wanted to make it, even simpler for audience
to hear Saurabh.
By stating, the example of, let's say, McDonald's, right? How would you? The first question is, do you think McDonald's is a design thinking company? Yes or no? And second question is, if yes or no, what would you do to make it? So if yes, it is, why do you think it's a design thinking company? And if no, how would you make it a design thinking company? Right? That's the question. Now, obviously, McDonald's is a great company, but it's somewhere missing the point. It's not really doing the design thinking that it should do. Why? The reason is they are obsessed with their product. They are obsessed with their consistency that they want to maintain throughout the world. If they are a design thinking company, they would ask the question to themselves that if my target audience, for example, are kids or children, what should they need today? So the children should need nutrition, right? The question that they should ask is, how can I provide children with nutrition in a tasty way, right? That's their design thinking process activation point. And when they start doing that, when they start thinking, okay, I need to make our children healthier and create a habit of them eating more healthy and nutritious product in a tasty way, then it should go back and create those products and solutions. Then you can say that yes, McDonald's is a design thinking company. Otherwise, it's like any other company which is making burgers and is successful at that, right? So that is the distinction between a design thinking company and a company which is not a design thinking company, right? You also asked about example on the data perspective, how B2B companies are leveraging data. In our last webinar, we talked about how General Electric uses data, and there is another great example of a company called Orica, which is based out of Australia and which deals in explosive packaged material, right? So they sell these explosives to mining companies or to civil engineers so that they can use these explosives in their day-to-day work, right? After many years, they started to digitize their process because they were not collecting any data. So they were just a commodity B2B product, selling it to their audience. It was a great product. But when they started digitizing the data, what happened was they collected a lot of data around under what environment is the explosives being used, right? What is the temperature level? What are the conditions? And they also started getting a lot of data from the miners, from their customers also. Was the objective fulfilled or not? What was the intensity of the blast? And so on, right? Now, over a period, they started using that data on their online platform, which is known as Blast IQ. And they created benchmarks, right? So whenever the audience would come to buy their product, they would just feed in the data on the platform and they would immediately get recommendations of what is the best amount of explosive that they would need for a typical condition where they would want to use it. So what happened was this company used data to create value for their customers. Now their customers do not have to buy randomly. Their customers do not have to buy vaguely, right? They would save money. They would save time. Their usage of the product is more effective, right? Because they would only buy as much as they would want to use. And they would only buy that product variant which is the best used in that condition, right? So that is how the more the data Blast IQ started to get, the more precise their predictions
Himanshu, can you able to hear me?
Started to become. Yeah. Yes, Arindam, we can hear you.
Yes, Arindam,
So
we can hear you.
Yeah.
So I hope I have given you 2 examples.
So I think there's some network issue. So is the discussion on?
Yes, Arindam, Saurabh sir is making his point. He is sharing his experience and sharing some details.
Okay, I'm not able to hear Saurabh.
Okay, I am done. So I think you can move on.
Right. So, all right. No worries. Then maybe we can ask our audience to get us some more questions and their queries, so that maybe we can later on. And before that, we have a quick poll for everyone. So we are doing a starting up a poll. So it would be great if everyone can answer. So I hope you all can see the poll on your screens and you can participate in the same. You can share. So that's great. I guess we have got few of the answers, like few of full answers from everyone. We are getting them. And along with this, you can also put in your Q&As, like questions, so that maybe we can answer like we can choose few more questions which we can't take right now due to paucity of time, and we shall choose the best questions and publish them in another video.
There is one next around content marketing. Have you taken that already?
Which one?
There is a question about content marketing.
Yeah, there is like there's like, as we are observing a lot of focus on content marketing from B2B perspective. So there is a question on this. So would you like to take it, sir?
Yeah, Arindam, would you want to take it? I think Arindam's is Arindam there?
Is facing some issue. That's I'm not sure.
I can hear you.
Because he is unable to hear you. He can hear my voice, but he is unable to hear you. Arindam, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I can't hear Saurabh, but I can hear you, surprisingly.
Okay.
Anyway, you guys continue, but I think there's some
need to ask the question to Arindam if
problem.
Arindam, as we can hear you, I guess audience can also hear you. So I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Like one of Q&A which we got, like so I will repeat it. So as we are observing a lot of focus around content marketing from a B2B perspective, right? So what does content and content marketing play? What role does content and content marketing play in B2B market?
You were saying what role content marketing play, right?
Yeah, content and content marketing play in a B2B marketing.
Okay, it's okay. So content marketing, B2B marketing, and if you ask me, that content is the the most important thing that one should focus on, because the new trend is that most of the organization right now, they're focusing to to have a great marketing automation tool. But the thing is that marketing automation tool only can automate that your that your targeting process. But the thing is that if you see that that in today's scenario, especially the online space, that all the customer, whether irrespective of B2C or B2B, they want to consume content which is relevant for them. So therefore, if you create some generic communication and serve to that all your target audience set, for example, you have the target audience which is divided into retail, healthcare, manufacturing, and all of them, they are seeing the same that content. It's very difficult that they can relate with their own usage scenarios. So therefore, B2B marketing is very, very important to have the personalized content so that you can get a better traction in the engagement.
No, absolutely.
So yes,
absolutely.
Himanshu, you are asking something.
Yeah, I think Himanshu, I agree with
that's
Arindam.
Himanshu from my side.
Yeah, definitely, we agree with you, Arindam. Definitely, you have rightly pointed out. So, like as per the verticals and audience, we have to set a content always. So I guess you very well answered it. So maybe we can, as we have got few other questions, let's Right. Would you like to add?
Yeah, yes, just wanted to add that the key question that we should ask ourselves as marketers is, what experience are we providing to our audience at each stage of the journey, right? And that's important because in B2B marketing, almost 70% of the entire journey is without really interfacing with a human, right? Which the buyer does not even interact with a human face for almost 70 or 60% of the journey of buying, which essentially means that the companies need to invest in creating trust and value through content, right? Now, someone can argue that why can't we create trust and value through advertising? For two reasons you can't do this. Number one, of course, it's expensive, right? Number two, expensive and you can't do it always. It can't be always on. Number two, there is a deficit of trust in advertising, especially in the B2B scenario, right? People trust their peers more, people trust influencers more, and people value neutral content more, right? The neutral content can come from a journalistic point of view or even from the brand, but as long as it is creating value for people, enabling people at a specific stage of the journey, people are going to trust. Which is why, in absence of human interface, in a scenario where there is a deficit in terms of advertising, right? In a scenario where there is already a lot of clutter and noise and low quality content which is coming out, there is a huge merit and a huge premium for content marketing, right? So the number one question that we should ask is, what is the experience that we are going to provide to our consumers at different stages in the marketing, right, or of the journey? Okay. And now, what do you mean by content itself? Another question that we keep coming to is, what do we mean by content? Is content only blogs? Is content only articles? Is content press release? Content could be anything. Content could be a simple piece of frequently asked question, FAQ. You can make FAQ videos. You can make troubleshooting videos. You can create a game. You can create a simulation. All this will constitute content as long as it resonates with the audience journey stage, right? Which is why a lot of companies, including Coca-Cola, for instance, they are investing into content marketing. The large B2B companies like SAP and Cisco and Dell are known for their huge army of content marketers in their team, right? You would not see a lot of advertising from them, but you would see a lot of great value-driven content which enables their buyers to do their work better, right? That's the essence of it. Right, Himanshu, Arindam, anything else?
So we have one more question with us. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Saab sir, can you hear?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a question from Ashima. So she has a question like, how COVID-19 has changed content creation and marketing? Which are the new focus areas? So any view on this?
You want me to answer?
Definitely. Yeah. Why not, Arindam?
So because I'm able to hear sort of, so I'm just asking, so that the audience, there should be, the two persons talking.
No, actually, everybody can hear both of you, so definitely you can answer.
Okay, great. So post COVID-19, that recently, I wrote a blog saying that post, especially from next 4 to 5 down the line, it's very important to nurture your customer. It's a high time because currently there are very few maybe interested to buy your product, but it's a time to create a mind share among your customer base, create a brand value, position your product so that when your customer is ready, you are the top of their mind. Now to nurture those that customers, that you need the right content. You just sending the product features, product messaging is definitely not going to work. every marketer should talk about, that in last 1.5, what sort of is mentioned, that how the product can make a difference in their business or in their in their life. So those kind of communication and a nurturing should be the approach, at least for next 4-5 months down the line. Not waste your money for the pure play demand gen. But if you think practically, it's not going to work. So there's a two bit from my side.
Right. I completely agree with Arindam. So post-COVID, I think there is a clear mandate that we should not push consumers to buy. And they are not going to buy. They are not going to receive that content in a positive way also. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for marketers to do a lot of things with the consumers which we couldn't have done so far. Okay. They could, as Arindam said, nurture the audience. So we have a real case in hand of Carl Zeiss, which is one of the world's largest photography lens manufacturers and sells to a lot of professional buyers of photography. Now with Zeiss, we are doing a whole series of educational content creation where we want our photographers to excel in what they do. So better in terms of professional photography and better in terms of choosing the products for the future. Right? So the future consumer trend, what are the equipments they need to become successful, and how can they improve their practice, fine-tune their practice with Zeiss. So that's the idea that we are looking at right now, from a post-COVID perspective. Right? Second, I can see a question here, which is around understanding consumer means end user or buyer or sponsor of the product. Himanshu, I think we can see some noise from the back end. Can you mute some mics? Okay, great. Right. So Raja has asked this question, has come to me. He's asking that when we say in content marketing customer, what does it mean? Does it mean end user, or does it mean the buyer or sponsor of the product? So Raja, very nice question. When we say customer or target audience, we mean the user, number one. We mean the buyer, number two. We mean the influencer, number three. We mean the partner, number four. And we mean the employees, number five. Especially in B2B sector, your employees are also your customers or your target audience from a marketing perspective, right? Your partners also, and your influencers as well. So there are 5 types of audience that we target through content marketing, right? I think Neville has asked about how can platform-based e-commerce businesses approach marketing. Neville, I think that's a question that we can take up in a webinar completely focused on that. Largely, platforms work on dynamics called network effects, right? And so that I think that needs a completely different perspective to what we're discussing today. And we can take it up later on.
Sure,
right?
Sure, sir.
Hitesh is saying that they generate 2 leads, but the conversion is only 2%. Okay, so I think we addressed this question last time also. If our lead conversion rate is low, I think it has got a lot to do with the data, number one, right? Number two, and you need to understand why the clients are not converting. Is it because of price issue, or is it because of the product issue, or is it because of your some other human sales oriented issue? Unless you understand these issues better, you will not be able to increase your conversion rate. Understand that B2B companies do not need to create huge volume of leads. It's better to get smaller volume of leads, which have higher chances of conversion, or they show higher intent, even if they are expensive, right? So unless we get to know the data points, we can't have a solution to this, which is why data is important. Yeah, so I'm done. So anything else?
All right. So I guess we have taken most of the questions then in that case. So, any other questions?
I think we can, as every time we do, we create a video on some best questions that people have asked. If they have any questions, they can ask, and we can create a video and come back. Also, of those of you who would want to see our previous webinars, let us know. We can send you the links. We have done extensive webinars on B2B marketing and transformation of marketing, etc. So we can share the links with you.
Definitely, we will. Right then, thank you, presenters.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, presenters. Thank you, audience, and we hope you have a wonderful weekend ahead. And the questions which will be coming up, we will be sharing them, like making a video and sharing with you all. So,
thank you.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.